Is this just a completely different series for y'all game planning wise now that, Steph's going to be out for at least the majority of it?
Yep. So we're in that room right now talking about, how we're going to approach it, what the lineups will look like. And it's all part of it. I mean, every year, playoffs are about adapting, whether it's a game plan or an injury or a lineup. So we just have to adapt, and we've done this before, and we're confident we can, do this again.
How is this news kind of landing with y'all, landing with Steph?
How has what?
Just this news, is it landing with y'all, landing with Steph? And will Steph stay around the team, or is he going back to the bed?
I assume he's staying here. I mean, we're flying home tomorrow night after the game anyway. I haven't talked to Rick about that. We kind of knew last night that he wasn't going to be playing anytime soon. But obviously we were waiting for the MRI and Rick's assessment. And so here we are, and it's just up to us to adapt and figure it out.
How much confidence do you gain based on the way that you played after Steph left?
Yeah, I mean, we think we have the best defense in the league, and that's been proven over the last couple of months. It's based on defensive efficiency, but also based on our confidence and Draymond behind the play and Jimmy, and we can rely on our defense, and we have to generate offense. Off of our D, and then we got to figure out, different ways to attack without Steph.
Jimmy's been a high-usage player at various points throughout his career, most notably in Miami. Are you kind of prepared to sort of tilt the way you do things toward him being that to sort of make up for the space in between, or you look at everybody as having to do a little bit more?
We're absolutely going to rely on Jimmy. Like we have, when Steph's been off the floor the last couple of months, we basically run everything through Jimmy in those moments. So he'll take on more responsibility, but we can't just rely on him, creating every single shot. We've got to execute offensively, and we've got to figure out some of the actions that we want to run against them.
Follow up on that, could like some of the old film from Jimmy in Miami be valuable to look at in this situation?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, that was the first thing we did when we traded for him, was we looked at a lot of what Spo ran for him. Miami runs a lot of similar actions that we run, so it was already a good fit to start with. But there's no question we have to look at different ways to attack tomorrow, and there's a lot of different options. But it's lineup combinations is really important. Who we're putting out on the floor. We've got to sort through everything.
Is there anything you can take away from those games in March where Steph missed a few games and it was Jimmy and you kind of leave?
Probably, yeah. We'll probably look at some of that as well. But again, this stuff, it generally comes down to the energy, the spirit, the how hard you play, and then stepping up and making some shots, and you can't at this point change a whole lot about who you are. You just have to play and go out there and get it done.
What do you think about Brandin's game last night?
Brandin, I thought Brandin was great. He it wasn't his night offensively. He made his first three, and then I know didn't make much after that. I think Steph's injury, they put McDaniels on him quite a bit, so McDaniels was hounding him. So it wasn't Brandin's night offensively, but this guy's a gamer, and he's in the right spot all the time. He's sticking his nose in there, rebounding constantly. He just drives winning, and I think he'll settle down. The last couple of games, he struggled a little bit with his shot, but this is all part of the playoffs, and I think Brandin will be a huge part of things going forward.
Does Steph's injury change anything for him, or does he need to continue to be that connector that you guys always lean on?
Yeah, we don't need to ask him to do anything differently. Really it's about handling their pressure for all of us, for the team, handling their pressure and getting loose and getting some open shots.
How much of your mindset now shifts to trying to extend this series long enough to get Steph back, or how much has to be almost not thinking about Steph?
Yeah, I mean, I think you literally just take it a game at a time, and we can't. I know there's a break between 5 and 6, and everyone's saying, you know, that maybe those 3 days, we can't afford to think about that. I mean, Steph will be back when he's back. We just focus on tomorrow's game, and then we go from there.
What did you learn about Edwards and coaching him this summer? Obviously, he had a bad first half and last night, but what did you learn about his youthful enthusiasm and what he brings and what you expect going forward?
Well, he had a monster second half, 9 for 12, got to the rim. So he's one of those guys who's unfazed by a bad half, extremely confident, and I'm sure he's coming out with a lot of confidence tomorrow.
So much talk about what Steph said himself, play meaningful basketball, and you did. You got to the spot. Now that he's out, can there be a win one for Steph, win two for Steph kind of, call out to everybody?
I think that's just a given. You know, everyone loves and respects Steph so much, and, he's the reason that this whole run has happened. I mean, there's been, plenty of contributions, and, I would say the same thing, about Draymond and Clay, and, there's a lot of key people who have driven this thing, but when it comes down to it, this is about Steph, this whole thing. He's like Tim Duncan in San Antonio, it's Michael Jordan in Chicago. There's none of it happens without Steph, and everybody knows that. The whole team understands that, and so I don't need to give a win one for Steph speech. It's going to happen on its own. The guys, they want to do it for him. Nobody has to say that.
How impressed have you been with Pat Spencer's ability to stay ready? And I mean, you haven't called upon him, but when you have, he's basically played well every time.
That's awesome. Gamer. He's just a competitor. He's tough, fearless, and he can play. He really pushes the tempo. He had a couple steals last night that led to some transition hoops. I mean, he's a really good player.
His story, so said the Wolves sent tapes to the league about some of the rebounding stuff and hit and go bare. Just what did you think of the physicality yesterday, and particularly the rebounding?
Yeah, I mean, I was upset the first 10 minutes of the game. It was just like Houston all over again. They were bear hugging Steph, and they could have called 6 fouls. But the league has established the physicality in the playoffs. Chris talked about it last week. Just the overall physicality isn't, to me, it's crazy out there. Well, what's happening? Everybody's fouling each other. I just feel like they have a really hard job because playoff basketball is, yes, it's physical and they're going to allow more, but I think they could have called a foul 6-7 straight possessions with them guarding Steph. And so I got my complaints too, trust me. We all do, and this is how it works in the playoffs. We watch the tape. We see all the fouls on them that aren't called. They watch the tape. They see all the ones on us that weren't called. It's a physical game. It's just going to be. And both teams have to adjust. I'm getting ready to send my own clips into the league. So,
Has it been consistent?
It has been consistent. Yeah, it's they're consistently allowing teams to foul, and as I said, it's a really hard thing to control because everybody's playing so hard and they know what the other team is running. And if you call every foul, I mean, Ime said it in our Houston series. Just keep fouling them. They can't call them all. And that's the old Pat Riley, Chuck Daly formula from the late 80s, early 90s. Just foul them every time. The refs can't call it. So this is playoff basketball. I always feel like the officials need to call stuff early in the game to set a tone. And, so Chris has his complaints. I got mine. I mean, for 8 straight games now, Steph hasn't had any freedom of movement. They've called maybe 4 or 5 calls in 8 games and we're watching on tape, and they're literally bear hugging Steph. That's a foul, but they're allowing it. And so, like I said, both teams are going to have complaints every game.
Steve, Finch specifically was talking about the play on Gobert and saying like pushing, holding, shoving, grabbing. He compared you guys to pulling linemen at one point.
Yeah.
What did you think about specifically with Gobert and I guess Looney against him, Draymond against him? What was that like to you? And does it just smack of posturing?
I didn't see a single foul on any of those plays. No, there was there's a lot of physicality in the lane for sure, and they definitely could have called a couple of those. But again, we saw the same thing. I mean, Jimmy's posting up Dante. I mean, Dante's fouling the crap out of Jimmy. He's just knocking him, and it's just these are fouls. But again, can you call every one of them? No, but can you set a tone early and try to clean it up? Yes, I think that's the idea.
Is that particularly relevant given the size? I mean, Gobert is so much bigger than some of your guys.
Yeah.
It seems like you have to be physical, right? Imagine.
Yeah, you have to be physical, and like I said, I mean, I'm sure Chris's complaints are warranted, just like mine are. It's both teams are going to have a lot to complain about at the end of every playoff game. These games are so physical, and I don't know what the solution is other than what I just said is can you call stuff early to set a tone, and try to get both teams to understand where the line is, and that's the best that the officials can do because. Like I said, you call every foul, and it's a parade to the foul line. Nobody wants to watch that either, so they have a very difficult job.
Steve, obviously, Jimmy's going to have the ball in his hands a lot, but with Steph out, do you rely more on Draymond's playmaking now? I know last series, Van Vliet kind of took him out a little bit offensively, but now do you rely a little bit more on him with the ball in his hands?
Sure. Yeah, Draymond has always been a great offensive initiator for us, and he will take on some of that responsibility for sure.
What does Loon, big contributions, Game 7 last night, what does he bring not only on the court in a playoff series, but also off the court in a playoff environment?
Yeah, he's smart and he's tough and he's composed, and you just trust him in these situations. He's been in them so often, and he just knows how to win.
Were you surprised at all that they didn't run much full court traps, full court press, even in the second half when they were trying to come back? And is that something you might be preparing for going forward?
I wasn't surprised. I mean, it's very dangerous to try to trap full court. You leave openings behind the play, and it is something that you have to be aware of and prepared for. But I don't think that surprised me.